Christopher Nolan is by far my favorite filmmaker and a very strong contender for the best filmmaker of all time. One of the crown jewels in his filmography is 2008's The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight trilogy itself is largely considered to be one of the greatest trilogies of all time, and if you've ever seen it, you know there's no doubt as to why the critics believe this. Nolan is a genius, and he's famous for his dream within a dream concept from Inception, but recently I discovered he has also experimented with the film within a film concept. I found this out while watching a video by Nerdstalgic, The Inception of Interstellar, where he explains how the sequence in Interstellar where they are on the first planet to see if it's habitable, then they get hit with that wave and only manage to emerge 23 years later, relatively speaking, is actually capable of being an independent film, and Nolan carefully tucks it within the greater narrative of Interstellar. Upon a rewatch of the Dark Knight trilogy, I realized that Interstellar was not the first time Nolan had tucked an independent film into a greater narrative blockbuster. He'd done that back in 2008 with The Dark Knight. Now, with this film in a film, the premise would be most of what's occurred in the runtime before its starting point, but to be specific to this particular sequence, at roughly the 1 hour 53 minute mark, the Joker sends out a message to all the people of Gotham. He tells the people that by nightfall the city would be his, and anyone left in there would have to play by his rules. And then he gives a warning that the bridge and the tunnel crowd are in for a surprise. Now, Batman is pushed over the edge of his own morality and turns every phone in Gotham into a microphone and high-frequency generator receiver, effectively violating the rights to privacy of every citizen in Gotham in order to find the Joker. Naturally, that warning at the end of his message caused the GCPD to shut down the bridges and tunnels and do bomb sweeps, effectively trapping people on the island city. The Joker has managed to force Gotham authorities to load 2 ferries, one with citizens and the other with criminals. The conflict already established here is that of the Joker's threat. People are desperate to get out of Gotham, and the authorities need to get all the prisoners out as well, as they are almost certain that whatever the Joker is planning for that night, the prisoners will play a very key role. Technically, they weren't wrong, they just played into the Joker's plan all along, because after the conflict is established, we get the big twist of this film within a film. Once in the water, both ferries experience engine failure, and when technicians go down to check what's wrong, we see that the Joker has rigged each ferry with explosives and has given the detonators to each boat. The Joker calls in with another message telling them that they are going to be part of a little social experiment. If anyone attempts to get off the boat, they all die. Each boat has a remote to blow up the other boat. They both have until midnight to blow up the other boat, and he will let the boat that blows up the other boat live. If nobody does anything by midnight, they both get blown sky high. Naturally, this begins to cause havoc. Each ferry has to make a choice, kill or be killed, and the clock is ticking. If you know and understand game theory, which is a branch of applied math that provides tools for analyzing situations in which parties called players make decisions that are interdependent, and this interdependence causes each player to consider the other player's possible decisions or strategies in formulating their own strategy, you can quickly identify that Nolan, through the Joker, has set up a prisoner's dilemma in this sequence. If I can digress a little and briefly explain the prisoner's dilemma for those unaware, it would be as follows. Consider the example of 2 criminals arrested for a crime. Prosecutors have no hard evidence to convict them. However, to gain a confession, the officials remove them from their cells and question each one of them in separate chambers. Neither prisoner has the means to communicate with each other, and the officials present 4 deals, often displayed as a 2x2 box. Option 1. If both of them confess, they will each receive a 5-year prison sentence. Option 2. If prisoner 1 confesses but prisoner 2 doesn't confess, prisoner 1 will get a 3-year sentence and prisoner 2 will get a 9-year sentence. Option 3. If prisoner 2 confesses and prisoner 1 doesn't confess, prisoner 1 will get a 10-year sentence and prisoner 2 will get a 2-year sentence. And option 4. If none of them confess, each will serve 2 years in prison. The most favorable strategy is for both not to confess. However, neither of them are aware of the other strategy, and without certainty that one will not confess, both will likely confess and receive a 5-year prison sentence. The Nash equilibrium suggests that in a prisoner's dilemma, both players will make the move that is the best for them individually, but the worst for them collectively. Now back to the Dark Knight. The Joker wants to prove that the rotten core of Gotham is a product of its citizens. He says early on in the film that their morals, their code, it's all a bad joke, dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. Back on the ferries, time is ticking and tensions are rising, especially on the civilians' boat, which ultimately decides to exercise democracy and have a vote to decide whether or not to blow up the prisoners. And the tally comes back as 140 against and 396 for. After all that time, as they're about to blow up the others, the guy holding the detonator tells the civilians that we're still here, meaning that they haven't killed us either. At this point, there's like 2 minutes left till midnight, and people are getting so uneasy. On the prisoner's boat, some buff guy walks up to the guy with the detonator and asks for it, saying he will do what the officer should have done 10 minutes ago. Back on the civilian's boat, some man also grabs their detonator and says he's brave enough to do what they all cannot do. Now there's peak tension. The buff prisoner guy then throws the detonator out the window, and the civilian guy can't find it within himself to turn the key, so he puts the detonator back in the box. Facing imminent death, the clock strikes midnight and there's silence. The Joker's disappointed, but he reaches for his own detonator, and then Batman throws him off a building before he can turn the key. Batman then says to him, "This city just showed you it's full of people who are ready to believe in good." And that's the end of that sequence, which, by the way, was scored ever so beautifully by Hans Zimmer. The screeching violin string that's slightly out of tune and constantly increasing in frequency is at the heart of the score, lets the tension rise and continue rising, but never really reach its tipping point, keeping you on edge. In just one sequence, Christopher Nolan was able to give, independent of the greater narrative of The Dark Knight, a premise, a conflict, a twist, good characterization, a climax, and a meaningful resolution, all accompanied with a perfectly fitting score by Hans Zimmer. That is The Dark Knight's Inception, Christopher Nolan's film within a film. Hey guys, it's Tao. Thanks for getting to the end of the video. Please like and leave a comment down below. Also, if you haven't subscribed, please do so and share the channel with a friend.